Turkey strikes a deal tonight to negotiate full membership of the European Union. The Turkish Foreign Minister is on his way right now to meet his EU counterparts, led by Britain.
This is a truly historic day for Europe and for the whole of the international community.
We'll be assessing what Turkish membership could mean for the rest of Europe. Also tonight, on show today, the Tory leadership candidates start to make their case. Funerals in Bali as police appeal for help to identify the bombers. And George Best is in intensive care with a serious infection.
And in BBC London News, the organic food cheats why you may be paying extraordinary prices for very ordinary food. And turning the Olympics into reality, a new name, a new organisation for 2012.
Good evening. Turkey has finally agreed terms tonight to start historic talks on joining the European Union. If it succeeds, it will be the first country with a majority Muslim population to be admitted. The Turkish Foreign Minister is due to land in Luxembourg later tonight to join a gathering of EU ministers there. Mark Mardell is there too with the latest.
Well, the British were determined that these historic, really important talks would begin on time today, and it looks as though they might just about do it. The Turkish Foreign Minister is in the air now, and he should land, despite all the hitches and glitches we witnessed from this press room. He should be here before midnight, if you're on British time anyway. His country has waited more than 40 years for this moment. Turkey's Foreign Minister Abdullah Gül leaves Ankara to fly to the European Union to begin talks on joining the club after hours of last-minute wrangling. In his moment of triumph, he perhaps deliberately underlines what would make Turkey a rather different EU country. We have a deal, inshallah, Allah willing, he says. Just a small smile, but one of intense satisfaction on the face of the Foreign Secretary. A gruelling 30 hours of talks with just 3 hours sleep add up to history in the making.
I celebrate the fact that here we have a European country which is secular, which is modern, which is reforming fast, which happens to have a Muslim majority, which is anxious to get into the European Union.
And Mr. Straw said when Europe needed Turkey during the Cold War, nobody raised any objections then.
We looked to Turkey to protect our flank. No one then said of Turkey, when they were asked it into NATO, oh, we can't have you because you've got a Muslim majority. We just said, thank you very much indeed.
Security is still uppermost in British minds. The government sees Turkey as a vital ally in their war against terrorism. So do the Americans, who've welcomed tonight's agreement.
We believe a Turkey firmly anchored in Europe will be an even more reliable partner for the transatlantic family and a positive force for advancing peace, prosperity and democracy.
Turkish murderers, they yelled outside the conference centre. These people think Turkey should have been shown the red card for refusing to acknowledge a massacre of Armenians in the last century. It wasn't an issue at today's meeting, but Austria fought hard before backing down. They wanted to offer Turkey something far short of full membership. Their foreign minister is still defiant.
This is not a matter of giving in or not, and we might be coming back to this in the future. This is a process that is going to stretch into the future and that will have ups and downs.
This is a triumph and a relief for the British presidency. With no budget agreed, the constitution pretty much dead, at least there's not a crisis about the shape of Europe. Not tonight, anyway. There's huge relief here tonight, but actually when you put it in perspective, this is really just one small hurdle leapt over because there's huge problems ahead. There's the relationship with Greece, the relationship with Cyprus, the whole question of human rights. It's going to be a rocky 10 or 15 years ahead for Turkey.
Mark, in Luxembourg, thank you very much. Well, most Turks seem to favour membership of the EU, according to opinion polls, but there is a significant minority which believes that Turkey will have to make too many concessions. The Turkish economy is performing well at the moment, and there's a view that the country doesn't need help from the European Union. Our correspondent Paul Adams has been to Bursa in western Turkey to assess opinion there on the country's future.
Turkey's journey into Europe, already long and not about to end anytime soon. But away from the diplomatic wrangling, what do Turks themselves make of this slow dawn? On the western fringes of Anatolia, the ancient city of Bursa, the first capital of the Ottoman Empire, a cultural centre, pious and conservative. But also busy making money. Industry is what drives Bursa. Its exports are worth a cool $4 billion a year, everything from textiles to cars, and almost all of it going to Europe.
We are not only trying to be European, we are just individuals who just lives just modern, who just tries to do business with whole world in the liberal economy, just trying to reach the highest level in the civilization.
Not everyone is so sanguine. Across this religious country, there are those who worry about what being European will mean. We have our traditions, Erdogan tells me. It would be a pity if we were to lose our traditional family structure as a result of joining Europe. At the moment, we're closely bound together. But the outside world holds no such fears for Hüseyin Durmaz. He sells his industrial machinery all over the world. By Turkish standards, his workers are well paid. But he knows that EU membership will come at a price.
We will be regulated from head to toe.
And that will cost you something?
This will cost us. But as an entrepreneur, I am willing to pay this cost. For the nation, it will be good at the end effect.
On the face of it, none of this looks terribly European. We're in Asia here, in an overwhelmingly Muslim country. The Ottoman Empire might once have extended all the way to the gates of Vienna, but most of its dominions lay well to the east. But, as we've seen, this is already a city closely connected to Europe. Some people relish that. For others, it's a worry. In recent years, Bursa has become more conservative. More women covering their hair, even their faces. In the ancient bazaar, a father and son show off the fabulous silks that once helped to forge Bursa's commercial reputation. Ali says he doesn't like what's happening to Turkey.
Culturally, the country is going backwards, and it's becoming less free. According to the reforms, it's becoming more European, but as a people who is living in the country, it's becoming less free.
Turkey's government is set on EU membership, but many of its citizens wonder just what it'll bring. For decades, Turks have yearned to join Europe. Now, for various reasons, some are not so sure. It's not just Europe that wonders if Turkey is ready. Paul Adams, BBC News, Bursa.
The Conservatives have no God-given right to survive, according to the party chairman. Francis Maud told members at their conference in Blackpool that the Conservative Party had to change dramatically if it was ever to return to government. Our political editor Nick Robinson has this report.
Normally, they try to raise morale at a party conference. Not here, not today.
Sounding like a mixture of Victor Meldrew and Colonel Blimp does not constitute a coherent policy or a basis for political appeal.
The Tories had to applaud their leaders, who told them, well, just how bad things were.
Yaboo, opportunism, intellectual self-indulgence, ideological obsessions, quick fixes, easy answers. I'm afraid they've all got to go.
Among what should be our core vote, graduates and people working in business and the professions, we lost support. Among younger voters, we lost support. North of Birmingham, we lost support.
There's never been a conference quite like this one. Speaker after speaker telling their party just how badly they're doing, just how much they need to change, just how little the public likes them. Their message seems to be, it's so much worse than you think it is. Back in their Blackpool hotel rooms after a long day at conference, some Tories are getting rather tired of all this.
Half the party thinks, shh, we're relaxing, it's all fine, it's all going OK. And the other half, please come in and refresh my party. And they have to choose which leader they want, someone who changes the party or someone who soothes the party.
First of the soothers to speak to this conference was Malcolm Rifkind, who told his party that salvation lay in their traditional values.
There has been a fundamental tradition of the Conservative Party that has believed in compassion and has practiced compassion, not simply as a soundbite, not simply for tomorrow's headline, but because the whole essence of conservatism is to serve all the people of this country.
Tomorrow it's Ken Clarke's turn. He's already charming his party on the conference fringe.
People will possibly be bemused by my choice of shoes, which is going to become very fashionable shortly, I know.
The day after comes the favourite, David Davis.
Chest out.
Mr Double D says he's the modern Conservative. Today, the man who's leader for just a while longer had some clear instructions for his team.
Keep your heads high, never give up, and victory will be yours.
Now, it surely wasn't an omen that the Tories lost 7-1 to the lads from, where else? The media. Nick Robinson, BBC News, Blackpool.
Well, as Nick was saying there, over the next 3 days, all the Conservative leadership candidates will be presenting their case to the conference, and the final decision, after MPs have chosen the two contenders, will be made by party members in December. Well, we've asked 3 of them to watch the speeches this week and assess each campaign with the help of our political correspondent, Vicky Young.
Meet 3 Conservative Party members who are doing their research. They'll all get a say in who leads their party, so they've come to this conference to see for themselves what each candidate has to offer.
I'm Marco Forgione, I'm 35, and I'm from Orpington in North Kent.
I'm Jean Searle, I'm chairman of North West Leeds Conservative Association. I'm a new pensioner and I am past president of the party.
I'm Darren Midgley, I'm 31 and I'm from Calder Valley Conservative Association in West Yorkshire.
First to make his pitch to be leader was Sir Malcolm Rifkind. The former Foreign Secretary certainly entertained the audience with some good jokes and received a standing ovation. But what did our panel make of it all?
He's an old hand at this kind of thing, so I would expect him to give a good speech, but as far as pitching out for the leadership, he didn't inspire me as much as I would have hoped.
I felt I was sitting at school having a history lesson, and I don't think that's what our party wants. Our motto of this conference is tomorrow's Conservative, and I felt he was very much yesterday's Conservative.
Just taking pot shots at Tony Blair or Gordon Brown isn't good enough. What we need now is someone who genuinely is going to reach out beyond the Conservative Party.
Now, you were all undecided before today's performance. How do you feel now about it?
I think Malcolm gave a great barnstorming performance, playing to the galleries, but not a leader.
Still undecided, was undecided before, and certainly he will not be getting my support.
Still undecided, but I don't think Malcolm's done enough to convince me to support him.
So a thumbs down for Sir Malcolm. Tomorrow, Ken Clarke and David Cameron get their chance to impress. Vicky Young, BBC News, Blackpool.
Police in Bali are appealing for help from the public to identify the suspected bombers who killed at least 22 people last Saturday. Images of the severed heads of the 3 alleged suicide bombers have been shown on television and in newspapers. Forensic teams are still examining the sites of the explosions at Jimbaran Beach and in the town of Kuta. From there, Andrew Harding sent this report.
Sifting for more evidence in the sand today. Australian investigators helping out at the bomb sites. This is shrapnel collected from the beach, but the main focus now is on the bodies of the 3 suicide bombers. The police are still studying this remarkable amateur video, which shows one of the suspects walking through a restaurant. Then the explosion. It's hard to see the man's face, even when it's highlighted like this. But now, some gruesome new evidence. This is the face of one of the bombers. The police revealing that the heads of all 3 attackers survived the explosions. We're hoping the public will recognize these faces and contact us. If we can identify the terrorists, we may be able to find their accomplices. Today, the victims' funerals have begun here in Bali. A rousing Hindu ceremony for a 32-year-old waiter, one of 14 locals killed. A grieving community wondering what to expect next. But for an island utterly dependent on tourism, some encouraging signs today. Many holidaymakers defiantly staying put. Cornishman Alvin Hancocks was running his bar as usual this afternoon. confident that business wouldn't be hit as hard as it was 3 years ago, when terrorists first struck Bali.
More determined just to carry on, not to run away. It's happened again. I think we just got to stand up to it.
On the beach nearby, more prayers this evening. Grief and defiance in the face of extremism. So, no breakthrough yet for investigators, but tonight, a growing mood of resilience here. Locals and tourists alike seemingly determined not to let the terrorists have the final word. Andrew Harding, BBC News, Bali.
And still to come on tonight's programme. Controversy as Mr. Bush picks a White House advisor to be one of America's top judges. And the masterpiece that's on display here for the first time in more than a century. George Best is in intensive care tonight at a London hospital suffering from an infection. The former Manchester United and Northern Ireland footballer, who is 59, had a liver transplant 3 years ago. Let's join Anita McVeigh, who's at the hospital tonight.
Hugh, George Best had been ill for a while before he was admitted to the Cromwell Hospital here, first of all to a general ward and then last night to intensive care. Now, when I spoke to his doctor earlier, he said that his condition was improving. However, he remains in intensive care tonight, but his spirits, I'm told, are pretty good, all things considered. It's all, sadly and rather controversially, familiar territory for the former footballer as he fights a well-documented battle against his addiction to alcohol. George Best's son Callum leaves hospital tonight after seeing his father.
Yeah, but he's all right, man. He's on the mend.
It's 3 years since the football legend had a liver transplant here. Now he's back in intensive care, being treated for an infection.
An infection is always serious in a patient on immunosuppressive drugs, which he requires for his liver transplant. So he's always at risk from infections, and he clearly hadn't been well the last few weeks.
After the transplant, George Best, here with his then-wife Alex, pledged to fight his addiction to alcohol.
And every day I'm around, it's like 2 fingers up. Everyone said, I told you it was a waste of time. That sooner or later he'd have another drink, he shouldn't have his transplant, he doesn't deserve this, he doesn't deserve that.
In fact, a year later, he was drinking again, arrested after an alleged scuffle at a pub. A drink-driving ban and the end of his marriage followed last year. Now, this latest health scare.
There's no one more disappointed than George himself with what he's done. You know, half the problem's been getting him back to hospital because he's embarrassed and upset to why he has started drinking again.
Manchester United declared George Best a genius when he began his footballing career with them. For 9 thrilling years, it proved true, before Best left the club and became more famous for his playboy lifestyle. His continuing ill health reignites the debate over whether he was ever a suitable candidate for a transplant. But with his condition improving, his many fans will hope that he might at last be persuaded to give up drinking. Professor Williams hopes that George Best can be moved from intensive care tomorrow. However, he will require several more days, at least in hospital. As for the long-term prognosis, well, of course, much of that depends on George Best himself. Hugh.
Anita, thank you very much. President Bush has chosen one of his closest advisors to serve as a judge in the US Supreme Court. Harriet Miers is a lawyer working for the White House and has never sat as a judge before. As Matt Fry reports, the response to her appointment might cause the president a little difficulty.
Rushing to a morning meeting on the steps of the Senate, what could be more mundane? But this is one of those curious Washington power rituals, because the woman in blue needs the men in black.
This makes it all official.
All official, he's telling her? Not quite. First, the Senate needs to confirm her as only the 3rd woman to sit on a court so powerful it can shape America's laws for generations to come.
This morning, I'm proud to announce that I'm nominating Harriet Ellen Miers to serve as Associate Justice of the Supreme Court.
Harriet Ellen who? That's what most Americans asked themselves as the president interrupted their breakfast today. But she is well known in this home, a longtime friend of the First Family, one of their lawyers, and one of his closest advisors.
In selecting a nominee, I sought to find an American of grace, judgment, and unwavering devotion to the Constitution and laws of our country. Harriet Myers is just such a person. I know her heart. I know her character.
But what about her legal mind? With Southern drawl, this career lawyer from Texas did what all nominees do. She kept it vague.
I have a special note this morning for my mom. Thank you for your faith, your strength, your courage, your love, and beauty of spirit.
Back on Capitol Hill, some odd news welcomed by some unlikely supporters.
I frankly didn't know that she contributed money to Al Gore, but if she did, that speaks well of her. That only makes me feel better about her.
Ironically, it's evangelical Christians and right-wing Republicans who are up in arms today. With President Bush in the White House, they had expected a nominee who would advance their agenda in the court behind me. As it turns out, they had expected too much. Matt Fry, BBC News, at the Supreme Court in Washington.
Boots the chemist has confirmed a multi-billion-pound merger with its rival Alliance Unichem. The deal would create Britain's largest chain of pharmacies with around 2,500 shops. Both companies have found it difficult to compete with the big supermarkets. Around 1,000 jobs are expected to be lost in the merger. And Britain's biggest cable company, NTL, is to take over one of its main rivals, Telewest, creating Britain's second largest communications company. The new company will have television, phone and internet customers in around 5 million homes and hopes to compete more strongly against its bigger rivals, B-Sky B and BT. Hugh Pym reports.
Remember this? Digging up streets to lay cable in the early 1990s. Confident days for an industry which dreamt of cabling up as many households as possible. But then with the internet and technology crash, investment in cable dried up. The two main players, NTL and Telewest, hit financial trouble. Now they've reduced their debts and got together to create a single cable company.
They came together over a period of time in two companies, NTL and Telewest, and this is the final step in that process of consolidation. And it's a great deal for our shareholders because of the value that will be created, but it's also a great deal for customers.
This is what it's all about, making phone calls, going online with broadband and watching pay TV. All services can now be offered by a single supplier. The new merged company says it'll have a big presence in all these markets. It'll have 3.3 million TV customers. That's 21% of multi-channel households. 4.3 million telephone users, 17.5% of the total market for fixed-line telecoms. And 2.3 million broadband customers. That's 31% of the residential broadband market. The aim is to provide serious competition to rivals like Sky with its satellite service, but that's easier said than done.
What they're hoping is they can bundle the three products together and make something which is extremely attractive to customers, more attractive than buying each of those products separately. The problem is that in each of those areas, there are strong companies with strong products that perhaps are best of breed, the best products in that area.
And the new company hopes to mount one big challenge to Sky soon, trying to win Premier League football rights, if the European Commission rules that more bidders must be allowed onto the field. Hugh Pym, BBC News.
Tate Britain on the banks of the Thames is hosting a remarkable exhibition of some of the most popular works of art of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It concentrates on the works of Degas, Toulouse-Lautrec and Sickert, exploring the creative dialogue between British and French artists of that age. Razia Iqbal has been to take a look.
Famous scenes of chorus girls, bars and performers in music halls. London was mad for French art between 1870 and 1910. Toulouse-Lautrec had his largest show here, and the greatest number of Degas paintings were owned by a collector in Brighton. A cross-channel connection between French and British artists in the late 19th century is what this exhibition focuses on. And it was Edgar Degas who became the central figure of this cultural exchange. Best known then and now for his paintings of dancers, Degas had celebrity status in London. He not only changed the way paintings were composed, he challenged